Canada, the land of stunning landscapes, universal healthcare, and a reputation for being a welcoming, multicultural society. But scratch beneath the surface, and you'll uncover a harsh reality.
Whether it's gas, food, or home heating, the cost of living in Canada is skyrocketing. New numbers from Stats Canada shows a jaw-dropping increase in inflation, 4.4%.
Living in Canada has become increasingly out of reach for millions. Rising house costs, surging immigration numbers, and a cost of living crisis are shaping the country's identity, making it a place where many are struggling to survive, let alone thrive.
And incomes can only go so far these days, Richard. We've been talking and dealing so much with, the rising cost of living, whether it's rent, whether it's mortgages, whether it's food inflation here.
Let's start with the biggest of them all, the housing crisis. Within a span of 2 years, the cost of renting a 2-bedroom apartment in Toronto rose from $2,400 to more than $3,300, this coming to an average increase of more than 25% per year.
Well, some new data compiled by Food Banks Canada now finds that almost 25% of Canadians are living in poverty. That is significantly higher than the 10% living below the poverty line.
This increased trend, however, was not unique to Toronto. Cities such as Montreal, Vancouver, Calgary have also shown a similar trend. It's worth mentioning that even minimum wage earners have not been spared by the spike in demand that the rest of Canada was hit by, since in most of these regions, even a 1-bedroom apartment is out of reach for someone earning minimum wage. The average median wage in Toronto and other metropolitan cities is often 2 or 3 times lower than the required income to avail a mortgage. The amount of homes that are available on the housing market is far less than the potential buyers. It's no surprise that even Canada's top earners find home ownership unattainable. This isn't just about numbers, it's about people.
How many Canadians are struggling with the rising cost of living? 1 in 4 people living in poverty in this country. Those numbers coming from Food Banks Canada. It found the poverty rate is actually higher than the 10% estimated by Stats Can.
Stories like 25 international students crammed into a single basement in Brampton aren't just shocking, they're common. Overcrowded housing has become a grim reality, with students and low-income families bearing the brunt of it. Although economy-wide inflation has increased the cost of living to a point where it has affected the majority of Canada, the problem has created a divide within an economy that's tried to be balanced. Everything in the Canadian climate has gotten expensive, be it groceries or transportation. To best illustrate this point, consider the fact that many people are unable to buy eggs or bread anymore. These are now rare commodities to them. On the other hand, parents are skipping necessities like health or education to survive. Students who are supposed to plan for their careers rather end up working across several jobs to pay their bills.
Yes, indeed. How we currently measure poverty in Canada is known as a market basket measure, which looks at a certain income level. What our study did was take an indicator, a measurement that they've used in Europe for decades called the Material Deprivation Index.
Immigration has always been a very big part of Canada. Brokering agents urge people to move west with promises of fertile land and endless opportunities. Immigration was, and still is, a cornerstone of Canada's identity. Fast forward to the modern era, and the country has maintained one of the most selective immigration systems in the world, designed to attract the best and brightest. Recently, though, it's been more of a double-edged sword. Canada recently accommodated about 465,000 new permanent residents in 2023, although they expect the number to grow to upwards of 500,000 permanent residents by 2025.
And for newcomers, that means some people who chose to move to this country are now making other plans. CTV's Jumi Ogunshola reports tonight on the difficult decisions some immigrants are now making to leave.
While immigration is meant to solve the issues of labor deficits or the rise in numbers of elderly people, but it also seems to be exacerbating an already strained housing infrastructure system. For the first time in history, immigration has turned into something polarizing. Protests began in the year 2024, as many Canadians stated that the level of immigration is out of control. People's views have changed drastically. Only 27% of Canadians thought there was too much immigration in 2022. By 2024, this figure had increased sharply to 58%.
Canada is experiencing record levels of population growth, and nearly all of it is being driven by international migration.
The population of Canada is getting old very fast. Back in 1971, for every retiree, there were 7 individuals fit for employment. This ratio is anticipated to shrink to merely 2 workers per retiree by the year 2036. Such a mismatch threatens the economy and entire social systems of the country. In order to resolve this, the government has heavily relied on immigration. They have concentrated on skilled workers in much-needed areas including healthcare, manufacturing, and technology. But while this strategy seems appealing in theory, the reality has been rather different.
International students are among those who could feel the effect of Canada's plan to reduce the number of new permanent residents.
I think they are doing right because population is like increasing day by day.
Currently, there are more than 2 million applications pending at immigration offices across Canada. At the same time, there's a wide gap between the number of immigrants and opportunities to work, as well as places in residence. What was supposed to be an exciting new beginning for immigrants turns into a fight for existence, and one man is at the center of all of it: Justin Trudeau. Back in 2015, values of hope, positivity, and Justin Trudeau's figure woven perfectly together when he ascended as the Prime Minister. In fact, many referred to him as Canada's Obama, and there was tremendous belief in him. However, the trust that was built has been broken after almost a decade. Trudeau has been sinking in approval ratings as he now has a meager 33% approval rating. Lots of Canadians see him and his inaction as the reason for the chaos the country is facing, especially due to his view towards immigration and the housing market. His critics have refrained from any expression of approval, suggesting that his regime allowed immigrants to flood the country without tackling the current pressing issues. Even his latest remarks, where he requested Canadians to slow down population growth and said that he would favor housing development over anything else, didn't impress anyone. It's as if he expects people to forget absolutely everything he has done and do nothing. If you're liking the video so far, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Canada has long prided itself on being an egalitarian society, but that image is starting to crack. In 2019, only 19% of Canadians considered the country to be extremely unequal. However, by 2024, this number witnessed an increase to a whopping 38%. This growing inequality is reflected in everything from housing to healthcare. However, for the lower class, living in such a reality is hell on earth. Even the middle class is getting the crunch as inflation is above their wages. The frustration is boiling over. In July 2024, protests erupted across the country, a rare sight in Canada. People are angry about the skyrocketing cost of living, the housing crisis, and the perceived lack of government accountability. Immigrants, meanwhile, feel unfairly blamed for these issues. They came to Canada seeking opportunity, only to find themselves scapegoated for systemic problems. This tension is creating divisions within communities that were once celebrated for their diversity. This isn't just a political or economic issue, it's deeply personal. Families are being forced to make impossible choices, like whether to pay rent or buy groceries. Seniors, who should be enjoying retirement, are taking up part-time jobs to cover basic expenses. Meanwhile, young Canadians are delaying major life milestones, marriage, having kids, or buying a home because they can't afford them. The strain is impacting mental health too. Rates of anxiety and depression are rising as people feel trapped in a system that doesn't work for them. The Canadian federal elections scheduled for 2025 might be the key point for Canada. If Trudeau wants to win another election, he has to change the impression voters have and show them that his government can turn the country around. But with the public's trust at an all-time low, such expectations are unrealistic to say the least. Canada faces a critical crossroads. Can it balance its commitment to immigration with the need to address its housing and cost of living crises? Will it invest in infrastructure and social services to meet the needs of a growing population? Or will it continue down a path of growing inequality and social unrest? Let us know in the comment section below, and make sure to like the video. Thanks for watching.